So we are now going to create the simple shopping list app that we saw earlier. So I'm logged into my App Inventor and I'm going to go to Project, Start a new project, and I'm going to call this My Shopping List. So first we are going to create the UI for this app, and as we saw in the demo, we will have a text box and a button that we will use to insert new items. So I'm going to go to my layout here, drag a horizontal arrangement. A horizontal arrangement is an arrangement where you put in other components inside this, and all those components will be next to each other side by side. So I'm going to make this component horizontal arrangement span the entire width of the screen, and then I'm going to go to user interface, drag a text box first. This text box is going to be the text box which we use to enter our items, and then we are going to add a button. So in this button, I'm going to rename the button Enter Button. It's always a good idea to name all our components properly. I'm going to delete this text and I'm going to make it say Enter. For my text box, I'm going to keep the name as it is. I'm going to delete this hint. I'm going to change the width and height to fill parent. For my button, I'm going to change only the height, not the width, to fill parent. Now, so this two components, these are going to be used for entering items. Now, in order for us to display the items that we have entered in our shopping list so far, I'm going to use a list view. So I'm going to drag a list view. I'm going to place that under the horizontal arrangement. I'm going to change the width of the list view to fill parent. I'm going to change the height to something like 450 pixels. Now notice the list view, the background of list view is by default black in color. On the other hand, our screen's background by default is white in color. So it'll look a little odd if you have white and black background. So I'm going to change the background of the screen to black as well. So our entire app will have black background. So this is our basic UI. So now what we want to do is go and start coding our blocks. So the main idea is when the user enters an item, we will have to save that item in a list. So of course the first thing we want to do is create an empty list. So I'm going to go to this variables, going to drag this initialize global name to, and I'm going to name my list of items, and I'm going to initialize that to an empty list. So initially when my app starts, it'll start out with an empty list. So coming back here, when we press this enter button, what we want to happen is grab the text that is there in this text box, insert that in our list, and then update my list view to show the current list after the new item was inserted. So in our blocks editor, we are going to go to enter button, and we are going to look for this enter button.click event. So when we click the enter button, what we want to do is we want to grab the text from the text box that we have. And this is the getter for this text box. This text box dot text, the first block, this is the getter. So this lets us grab the text from the text box. We're going to add that to our list. So I'm going to go to list. I'm going to grab the add item to list. We are going to say that, hey, I want the text box dot text in my list, and we'll have to specify which list I'm adding this item to. So I'm going to go to this variable, and I'm going to get this get block, select the list of items, place this inside this enter block.click event. So in this event, when we click the button, We are going to grab the text from the text box. We are going to insert that as a new item in our list. Now, when we do that, beyond that point, we also want to clear our text box. Otherwise, this text that we have already inserted in the list will remain there in the text box. So we want to go to text box again. We want to grab the text box, that text, the setter now, and we are going to clear that. So I went to my text, I grabbed this top empty string. So what I'm now doing is grabbing the text from the text box, inserting that into my list, and then clearing the text box. So the next thing that we want to do is take all the elements from my list and show that as my list viewer. So I'm going to go to my list view one. I'm going to select this elements. So my list view shows all the elements of a list. So I am now going to go to variables, grab this global list of names. So now what this is doing is it is adding the item to the list, clearing the text box, and then showing all the items from the list in my list view. Now let's try that one first. So if I click on this emulator, add an item, press the enter button. At that point, that item will be showed in my list viewer. So as you can see, when I type a new item, press the enter button, the new item is inserted in my list, and all the items from my list are displayed in this list viewer. So now the next thing that we want to do is delete an item from my list of items. Now if you go back to your designer, and if you click on this question mark next to this list view, you will see that there is an event called after picking in list view. So list view currently shows all the items of a list, and if you can select any one of those items. So in this app, what we want to do is when we select an item, we want to delete that. So in order for us to code that, we will have to go back to blocks. We will have to drag the list view.afterPicking event. And when we pick an item, we want to remove that item from the list. So we want to go to list, we want to select remove list item, and we want to specify which list. So I'm going to just select this list, hit a Control C and Control V to duplicate that block. Now let's look at this. Let's look at the emulator. Let's say we want to delete this second item. So when we click on that, our list view dot selection index, this getter block, the list view dot selection index, that tells us which item we selected. So we are going to delete that same item from the list. So what happens over here is if I select the second item using my list view, then after that second item is picked, we are going back to the list of items list, and deleting that second item. So after we delete an item, we have to again make sure that our display is updated. So I'm going to copy and paste this whole block inside this. So now let's see, if I come back to this emulator, select the cookie, that's gone, select the egg, that's gone. Let's say I add some new items. And at that point, we can again select to delete something. So this app right now lets us insert new items into the list, delete new items, but this will not store the list items permanently. In other words, when we close the app, at that point all the data that we have stored so far will be lost. So the data is right now not persistent. So in the next tutorial, I'm going to show how we can add codes to this app so that my data is stored permanently.